belted. Welcome in Carlos Gomez. Hello. Goodbye.
Oh man, yeah. We rocking now for real. BS3 Sports. Okay, sports news, get it first when you're getting off of work. Even when you're at work, acting like you're working hard when you're hardly working. I'm a maverick like Dirk, getting Franklin's like Kirk. Hold up, boy. X-Squad, you don't know them boys? Being talking facts on every topic. Overall, we just talking noise, just being boys. Covering Texas sports in them tall hills. That with the fake pass over to Elliott. Better guard your grills like a car for real. Yeah, Cowboys gonna bring a bowl back, Lord willing. Yeah, Mavericks gonna bring a ring back with Mark in it. We live sports, we talk sports, we dream sports, we eat sports. The teacher about to teach the course. Welcome to BS3 Sports. Bruce. Oh man, yeah.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the BS3 Sports Show. We got a special guest on the show, Dr. Leketa Hawkins. She's been featured on numerous NBC affiliates, also WRAL and WECT. And she's on the show tonight as we talk about financial literacy, financial health, and how that correlates with sports. So how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Ben, for the introduction. How are you doing?
Good, doing good. So the Pocketbook Strategist, I love that. Talk about that. How did you give us a little bit of backstory on yourself and how you came up with that tagline, which is very catchy?
Absolutely. So I have to get out of saying absolutely all the time. So one thing is that I always talked about money a lot. So I've been told and still told by most of my family members and friends. And I have a love for pocketbooks. So we kind of merged those two things together. And I became the Pocketbook Strategist. So yeah, that's kind of how I was born. And that's what I've been called internationally and nationally ever since.
Wow. Awesome. So from North Carolina, and just a little bit of backstory on me, I have family in Hickory, North Carolina, and my uncle or my great uncle worked at Winston-Salem State. So got a little bit of roots there.
Okay. Hickory's not too far, and I definitely went to Winston State. So if we were there around the same time, probably saw your uncle at some point. So, it's small but big, or big but small, rather.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Super Bowl just passed. Obviously, we were on BS3 Network, was on Radio Row. We missed you there, but I'm glad you reached out, were able to get you on the show. There's so many athletes, obviously, that are there. That's the media Super Bowl, if you will. And when you talk about money, the amount of money that flows around in, the major sports, it's crazy. But a lot of it is not handled properly. We've seen it in, I think, different athletes. There's so many. There's some high stories, some low stories, and there's just some very bottom, stories of things that have happened. But talk about just at the basic how important financial literacy is.
I think when we go back to history, we have to start there, right? Start with, just the minimum wage for any athletes, and specifically for NFL's. We're talking about Super Bowl. Back in 1967, their salary was about $19,000, right? Oh. And then lastly, up until now, last I checked, it was about 3.2 million or more, right? So just being able to keep up with that gap of how we've grown over the years. And I think when you're drafted into the league, it's, you're becoming an instant millionaire, of course. So just some of us not having the background, many of the players not knowing how to even write a check because they've never had to before. Right. And then, many don't have a bank account, and for example, I think his name is Hart Scott. He had like $1 million check and he was awarded the check, and he kept the check for so long. The agent called to see if he actually received the check and if he was going to cash it. Right. He actually framed it. Didn't know what to do with it, actually framed it, kept it. You hear numerous of stories of NFL players and other players that don't have the bank account, as I stated, and they actually don't know where to cash the check at, or they'll go to a check cashing place or to cash their check. So just the bare minimum of those type of things with bank accounts, and knowing that you can open up an account with the check that you have or that you've been given. Most people don't know those small bases. And so I think it's important to have someone or learn, educate yourself. I think education is first and foremost, and it's not about going to school per se or getting a degree. It's just having the basis of those things. So I would say just starting there with the minimum, knowing what you can do with your money before you go to anything further. I would say that would be the basis, knowing what you can do after you receive that $1 million check.
Yeah, and that's 100% correct. I mean, we've had numerous athletes that just don't know what to do, like you said, because they were never taught. And I think one of the things the NFL has started is, or a couple of years ago, is having former athletes come and talk to the rookies and say, "Hey, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get this money. You're going to get all these people coming out of the woodwork. Your third removed cousin that's wanting to borrow $1 million, and everybody has these ideas that they want to get this money." And I think that's important because even though they didn't learn it at home, the NFL, I think, does have some responsibility to at least prepare them for what's to come. So do you agree with that? Do you think that's a good approach that the NFL should have?
Yeah, definitely. And the NFL currently does have, some different things now. As you stated, they have 401k packages, they have severances, they have different annuities and things like that now that they actually offer. And they come with some different avenues of some sort of financial planning. But we also have to be careful there, not just with the NFL, but just with other people outside of that. And that brings me to another point, is that, sometimes you have to be careful who you trust with your money. I think that's why it's important for you to be educated. We've had several athletes that have been taken advantage of. For example, Michael Vick, he was taken advantage of by his agent. I think it was two of his agents that he was actually taken advantage of. And so that goes back to the importance of knowing how to count your own coins and keep up with them, knowing where your investments are going, and not always trusting someone with all of your money, right? So, yes, I do agree with you. Those things are needed, and they're definitely very important.
Yeah, and I mean that's what our parents. Some of our parents would tell us, "Hey, you gotta know how to manage your own. You gotta know how to what you can." Control, and if it's in your control, you need to learn it and know it, because sometimes you can't trust other people because they may have the wrong motives. They may be wanting you to get this money, or that could benefit them. They're looking at it on their own. So I mean, it's huge now, and we have some athletes now that they it's in-house. So you got uh Lamar Jackson, who his mother is his agent, which some people didn't agree with. Some people thought like, okay, this wasn't the best route. He's not going to get the best deal. He ended up getting one of the biggest deals ever. So I think it does matter, who's in your corner, who you're allowing to kind of be your spokesperson. And I think Lamar Jackson's a prime example. You look at Jalen Hurts, who, congratulations to the Eagles, just won the Super Bowl. I mean, he has a group of women that kind of help and direct and manage him. So talk about those kind of two athletes, and kind of how you can go, on one extreme or the other.
Yes, definitely. I think that is very important what you're saying. And then to add to that as well, when you're actually signed and you're drafted, the athlete's salary is actually made public, and they're getting targets from there. So I think it is very important to have your team readily available or available to you, have them picked out, and then vetting those as well, doing your research and just vetting those people on your team. So I definitely think that is important. Also knowing, that your agents are often going to take 3 or 4% of your contract, being aware of that as well, being able to budget that in and what you have, because I think making money is easy in sports, right? Keeping it is the hard part. And so just being aware of that, and just noting the things that come after that, making sure that they're paid, they're allocated, but not trusting them with, as we stated before, with all of your money either. You might have a percentage with them and another percentage outside of them. And so just being aware of that, taking advice from whomever comes in, but then also doing your research as well. So
Yeah. And we have Dr. Leketa Hawkins, the Pocketbook Strategist. We followed each other on social media. I've been seeing some of your posts, and it makes total sense. And when it comes to athletes, like we talked about, getting all this money, if you couldn't manage that $5,300 check that you got from your taxes, how are you going to manage $1 million? And that's so true. I think if we can, as parents now, as much as we know about the professional sports, I think we could best prepare our kids for this is what's to come. If your kid has that ability, they're going to college, they're getting highly touted, they're being scouted, and they're being recruited. I think those are some things we can do. But talk about that post, which I think makes complete sense. If we can't, that's a Bible reference. If you can't manage little, how can you expect to manage much?
yeah, definitely. I think it goes into itself, Ben. You have to be able to manage the $10 before you can manage the $10 million.
Right.
And then I think you just spoke about taxes. I think, we have to make sure that we're budgeting properly for taxes, because Uncle Sam is gonna come and get his, right? And so
Right.
within sports, you have to pay taxes in your different states that you're in or that you play in. So
Right.
just being aware of that as well, and taking that into consideration of your budget. But once you're able to manage the $10, you're actually breaking it down, allocating it where it needs to be, then you will begin to get into practice to do the same thing with the millions. I think once we're responsible with little, then we will be responsible with much. And so I think that is the big thing. Another thing that came into mind is that this is not just for athletes as well. I don't think it's an athlete's problem. It's an American problem. It's just money all around us. It's being thrown at us. The music industry will bring things in with songs saying money ain't a thing. And we think that money grows on trees. And so the athletes think that, this money is going to keep going. And so they need to realize that. Right. They have to realize that, you're being paid 6 months out of the year. So you need to be able to budget for the remaining 6 months. You know what I mean? And when you receive these big contracts, that you're actually taking that 5-year salary and figuring out how you can spread it out over 50 years, so to speak, because we know statistics say 60-70% of the athletes are filing for bankruptcy, 2 years or less after they're out of the league. So just being able to know that and not to be one of them, or after retirement, rather, to not fall into those statistics. So
Right.
yes.
And when you look at the rookie with their contract, and you look at the veteran, they may be on their third contract. So if you look at a rookie just coming in the league, and you look at Dak Prescott that just got his third contract, talk about how, from a rookie to the veteran, what are some things that they can do over their career that they can help, set themselves up for the future?
A great question. So I think if we look at the athletes that came before them, the Michael Jordans, the Charles Barkleys, doing things off the court, right? I think or off the field, just trying to figure out what you can invest your money in, something that has a promised business plan, if you will, where you're seeing that it's growing. So you'll know that you can invest your dollars into those avenues, whatever they may be. We don't always have to invest in everything that we're interested in. I think most of us want to invest in, some restaurants or, something, but you just want to make sure, again, doing the research and making sure that it has a good return. You're getting a return on your investment. So, I know a lot of athletes have a lot of shoe deals, and just making sure that deal is the right one for you. Again, going back to education and doing the research. So just investing in things outside of the field, and being aware of bad investments. It's some bad investments out there. It's some big sharks out there that are ready to take you on. They say car washes are a bad investment. A lot of athletes invest in those. We go to the clubs and things like that. So just being mindful of those and those locations. And that brings me to also, Ben, the athletes like to purchase the big homes, right? We've seen
Right,
MTV Cribs, and
right. It was classic.
so
That
you
was
don't
classic
always
in
have
the 2000s.
right. You don't always have to have the big crib. You want to stay within your means and live within those means that you actually have. And so I think those are big things as well.
Yeah, and AJ Brown, who's a member of the Eagles, he pulled up to the Super Bowl in his Honda Accord. And there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that because if I think if you and also it's like if you're not wanting to appease others or please others or put on this appearance of this is I want people to just see what I have instead of just being content with what you have. And I think
Right.
that's huge when it comes to coming into this money, like we've been talking about. So talk about some of these bad investments that uncle that's had this idea for years, and you made it, or that cousin is coming up with this idea. Talk about how they can kind of skirt some of these bad investments and determine what's best.
Yes, those are definitely common financial pitfalls. I think we receive peer pressure from our family. We think that we
Right,
have to take care of our family and friends, listen to what they say. We want to go into this fast money culture, being able to make the investments. But if your family member doesn't have a business plan and you ask them about the business plan and they say, "What is that?" then that should give you a red
red
flag. Like
flag number one. Right,
right, that they're not ready to move into that. And I think we all have the thing of where we want to bring our family on, right? We
right,
want to
right,
help our family out because they was there for us and all those
right,
things, but you can't feel guilty because of that.
right.
You're the one out there making the money, you're playing the sports, you're bringing in the money, so you don't have to feel guilty about that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't have to take on your uncle's business plan. Now, you guys can do the research together and come up with something, and then you can decide if you want to invest. But definitely don't feel guilty about that. I think it's definitely something that you don't have to feel pressured into.
yeah.
You don't have to say yes to everyone because you're responsible for yourself.
Right. Exactly. At the end of the day, when things go south, that family member is not going to be like, "Hey, I got $1 million to help you get out of debt." I mean, they'd be like, "Hey, you gave it to me. I didn't tell you to give it to me." That's kind of what ends up happening. We have Dr. Leketa Hawkins, the Pocketbook strategist on the BS3 Sports Show. Talk about with athletes. There's charities or charity organizations that they start, which is also a benefit to them. So talk about that, how that could also be a benefit to their financial success.
Great. I'm glad that you brought that up. Yes, that is definitely an advantage for many athletes, even having a nonprofit or donating to charitable organizations. Those are things that they can actually write off as well. Definitely seek a CPA, someone that's
Yeah,
certified and not just a tax advisor or a tax preparer. You actually want to have someone that's certified to help you with those items. And so just being aware of those things, yes, you are able to use them to your advantage. So definitely have one of those, have a CPA on your team. I think, as you accept these big contracts and these sign-on bonuses and things, you want to have a team of people, as Ben just mentioned earlier about Jalen Hurts having his team. So definitely want to have a team of CPA, accountant, an attorney, all of those things on your team before you begin anything. So they can give you the rules and the layouts of any investments that you should be doing based off of, your particular situation.
yeah, yeah. And I wanted to go back to one thing. Athletes that play, specifically the NFL, they play in multiple different states and cities a year. And I don't
Mhm.
think people understand they have to pay taxes in every single city. So I think, and I seen this post on social media somewhere. You look at the amount that they get, you look at what the agent gets, you look at the taxes that they pay, and by the time you get to that bottom dollar amount, it is not as much as what's going across ESPN on the ticker at the bottom. So I think that is one thing that you have to consider when we talked about buying those big houses and cars and doing all these things is that you really don't have as much as you think. And I think we make it bigger because this person's got a 5-year $60 million contract but that's broken down so low that we don't really realize.
Yeah, and Ben, they did a study back in 1999 and then the early 2000s that it was 78 players that lost about it was $42 million due to bad investments. And so, and including with that, getting wrong advice and things like that. So you definitely want to, pay attention to that and be aware of that as well, in addition to the taxes that we're mentioning here again.
Right. And so I know you're a 2-time Amazon #1 best-selling co-author. Talk about that if you want to talk about that. Anything you have coming up in the future as well.
Yeah, definitely. Co-author in those books is definitely talking about finances. That's definitely my niche, financial literacy specifically, because again, it's needed. I think, most people lack the financial literacy if they weren't given. So those books talk about that, gives a little bit about my story and how, I wasn't taught about finances and I had to teach myself. And so I knew that other people out there needed it as well. So making sure that we're not living outside of our means and, being financially prepared.
Yeah.
Things I have coming up, I have a product that's coming out soon that will actually help people to quit switching from saving to checking and back and forth. So that is more to come on that, but that is my next project. I have a book signing coming up as well that's coming up on next month, and a few other podcast appearances coming up as well. So
awesome. And when it comes to financial literacy, like we've been talking about, it is important that we take it serious, because I think we take it lightly. That first credit card, I'll talk about myself. That first credit card I got in college, that thing ran up real quick. Really didn't have the money, but I think if we know better, we can do better. That's a cliche saying, but if you know something, at least you're mentally prepared and you know what the consequences are. If you don't know what the consequences are and you get into it, then the end road could be a struggle.
Yeah. And you know what? I think we've all, had a money problem or developed debt from credit cards. We're currently having it, had it before, or will have it in the future. And so I think it's, learning from other people's lessons and learning from them and then going forward, teaching the next person. So that's what you have here and have on your platform on what we're discussing today. So I think that's very important.
Yeah.
If anyone's out there listening, knows someone that's going into, sports, I think this is something that definitely should be shared out with them to make them more aware, because many people don't know, or they actually don't think about that as well. So I also want to say saying no is a complete sentence. You don't have to say yes to everything. It's your money. So
right. The art of saying no. We had a podcast on that on the network. I mean, the art of saying no. Sometimes the answer is no, and that's okay, because you are the one that has to live with that decision. So last thing I want to ask you: emergency fund. Talk about the importance of that, especially as an athlete. The amount of money you have, you can be putting money away, don't even know it's there, and just being able to put it to the side.
Great question. I think emergency funds are definitely needed. I think we all need to have, at least 6 months to a year of emergency funds, or 6 months to a year of, your salary saved up as well. Certain percentage of that put to the side in case something happens. For athletes, in case you're hurt, you lose a percentage of your salary. You're not, getting that back. You'll have something to fall back on. Different emergencies such as car maintenance or things like that, family emergencies, having that to fall back on. So if you're spending all your money and, the lavish cars and, the competitiveness is not always on the court or on the field. Sometimes it's in the parking lot.
Yeah.
So if you're spending it all on these lavish cars and you're not able to afford it, you definitely want to make sure you have it in your emergency plan. I say, break it down into a budget. Every paycheck that you get, 10-10-30-50 rule, or the 20-30-50, where you're using 20% to actually save and pay yourself first. You want to pay me incorporated, pay yourself first, and then 30% for any incidentals, and then 50% for bills. And if it doesn't fit within those percentages, then you need to get rid of it. So definitely have that emergency fund that you spoke about, so you can have something to fall back on. So you don't have to rob Peter to pay Paul, call back home because you spent all your sign-on bonus or your contract, and now you need help. So
right. And injuries are going to happen. It's not a matter of if they happen, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
So all the athletes out there, no matter what level you're at, the injuries will happen. And you have to have a cushion when that does happen. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you and follow you and get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Great question. Thank you for having me as well. I'm the Pocketbook Strategist on IG. I can be found on Facebook as well. My business, Hawk Lee, which is HAWCLEIGH, is all platforms. So I can be found there.
All right. And you can see it right there on the screen. So definitely follow and check her out and get in touch with her if you have questions or concerns. And I'll say this before we leave: it's okay to ask questions. Like stuff that we don't know, we need to ask, or else we wouldn't know. And so, don't be afraid to ask questions to someone to at least get you knowledgeable, so you know what to do. So, yeah, thank you so much, and you have a great one.
Thank you. You too.